Welcome to a new season of The Briny. I'm Matt Frasica. Before we get started, a quick announcement. The Briny is now a part of Hub and Spoke, a collective of independent podcasts created by a group of incredibly talented audio storytellers. And I couldn't be prouder or more grateful to them for welcoming The Briny into their ranks. Like a lot of people, I've been spending a lot of time at home over the past couple of weeks, and probably an unhealthy amount of that time on Twitter, which is where I came across Jessica Ellis.
I'm not an aquariums expert, but I'll do my best.
Jessica is a writer and director, and she lives in LA.
I have a feature film that's, well, it's been on festivals, but the festivals have all been canceled at this point, called What Lies West. That's a coming-of-age adventure about two girls hiking across California.
And like the rest of us who are stuck at home, Jessica has been trying to figure out how to deal with the stress caused by watching this global crisis unfold on her computer screen.
I'm trying to take a couple of hours off every day to do things that are not Twitter. I started a podcast called Distant Socials where I'm talking to just people all over the country about their experience going through coronavirus and just kind of creating a living diary of the event for people all over the place, because that's really interesting to me. And I've also been doing a lot of painting while listening to extremely soothing music. That's been sort of my escape. Yeah.
All right, and so in that context, in the context of like uncertainty, fear, like not knowing how things are going to play out in the future, are you the kind of person who's like scanning Twitter for each new like bit of information, or are you more restrained than I am?
No, I'm on Twitter like 20 hours a day. It's not a healthy habit, but it's important. You know, it's difficult because it's like there is the doom surfing that you can kind of do at the moment, but it's also the only way to talk to your friends, or a lot of my friends I know through Twitter, and I have, you know, constant DMs with throughout the day. So if I want to talk to anybody outside of my house or my family who I call, like that, I have to be on Twitter, and then you can't help seeing all of the terrible things.
The number of cases soaring just today, more than 24,000 now nationwide.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
To staggering levels. Reports the U.S. has surpassed China with over 80,000.
The U.S. now with more than 119,000 cases and more than 2,000 deaths.
Right now, you're scared.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.
Now, normally, Jessica has this one favorite place where she goes to feel calm and peaceful.
I grew up in the North Bay area, and my parents took me to Monterey when I was about 17, and I just went mad for it. And the Monterey Bay Aquarium is probably my favorite location in the entire world. It is just one of the most beautiful places and one of the best aquariums I've ever been in. So I go to Monterey in a normal year. I'll steal out of LA and get up there 2 or 3 times a year. And even though I don't live there, I always buy an annual pass to the aquarium, because I will just spend like a straight week going to the aquarium 3 or 4 days.
Wow. What is it about aquariums, you think, that makes them so relaxing?
Well, for one thing, it's dark and cool in an aquarium. Generally, it's a very calming environment, you know, almost like something you'd find in a spa or something, when it's not full of like 9-year-olds. It's a very I don't want to, not like a sensory deprivation environment, but an environment that is not busy in a lot of ways. It's very dark and quiet, and the fish are generally moving at a kind of slower pace than you are. And I think it just helps you kind of slow down a little bit and just stop and observe things.
Jessica finds the Monterey Bay Aquarium so soothing that she tries to think about it whenever she's feeling anxious.
I am terrified of flying, and I had to fly to Minnesota last year. Normally, I try to get out of flying any way I can, but I had to go to Minneapolis. And one of the things I worked on in therapy was making myself a little brochure to take with me, because I find brochures very reassuring, of just like things I liked and good relaxation tips and stuff like that. And I put a picture of one of the Monterey Aquarium webcams on my brochure just so I could take it out and look at it and be like, okay, fish. All right, I'm centered.
Right.
And it really helped. I kept it in my purse. I printed it on glossy paper like a real brochure. And for some reason, it worked fantastically. So the aquarium webcams there are my way to escape to my favorite place. And so being able to just switch those on for a few minutes is a great self-soothing technique for me. They have the same music in the live cams that they have in the aquarium, which really helps it feel like you're there. It's this beautiful soundtrack by an artist named Douglas Morton.
Yeah. So how have you been finding yourself using those webcams to sort of cope with the pandemic stress? They're
really useful, and they're the aquarium itself, the Monterey Aquarium at least, and I know the Shed Aquarium and some of the other ones are trying to do a lot to reach out to people. I know in the Monterey one, every morning at 8 a.m. on one of the webcams, they're doing a 10-minute guided meditation, which I've done a couple of times, which is really, really pleasant. It's very basic, simple, like you don't need to be experienced at meditating, which I'm not. But I also just find when I am getting overwhelmed by Twitter, just flipping on to some jellyfish for 2 minutes, not for a super long time, it has the same sort of effect that being there in person does, which it just slows you down and you can focus on details of the aquarium and focus on a different fish or something, and it just is a good way to regulate your body a little bit.
But of course, Jessica isn't the only one who's taking a virtual trip to the aquarium while sheltering in place.
People have really been drawn to these cams.
Ken Peterson is the communications director for the Monterey Bay Aquarium.
I guess you should have known because they're popular in regular times, but when people are under stress, I think they need that calming, soothing connection to nature even more. So for us, the web traffic has gone up about tenfold since the start of the together at home, shelter in place, social distancing orders that are coming down. Jelly cams are super popular. Sea otters, super popular.
I don't know that I was aware of the Monterey Bay Aquarium's webcams before this past week when I started seeing them being shared on Twitter as this great way to de-stress from the constant flow of bad news. But I'm sure you guys have had webcams for a while. What was the origin of the idea of doing live webcams?
Monterey Bay Aquarium is not located in a major metropolitan area. We're a couple of hours south of San Francisco, and we're on that route that people will take, LA to San Francisco through the Big Sur coast or vice versa. And we still get a lot of visitors a year. We get about 2 million people who come through the doors, so they can connect with the exhibits directly. But there's a universe of people out there who are not going to get to Monterey every year or may never get here. But we still want them to be inspired by a connection with living sea creatures in our exhibits. We know that is, for us, the most powerful way to start the conversation and start the connection to protecting the ocean. So we set up webcams pretty early on, and initially we had it in places like our kelp forest exhibit and our sea otter exhibit and our big open sea exhibit. And we've kept adding those cams to the point that we now have 10, including one that points right out into Monterey Bay and gives you a chance to see passing wildlife. And then the jellies, of course, which are completely something that really got started in a big way in Monterey and are just so soothing for people, particularly now.
The jellyfish cam is my personal favorite. The animals themselves are this vivid orange against the deep blue of the water, and they move with these slow undulations. It's mesmerizing. And somehow I find just watching them slows down my breathing and heart rate.
The jellyfish are great. The rhythm at which they move and sort of just the intricacy of like their tentacles, and they have that little fringe on the edge of them. It's very fascinating to just sort of stare at.
Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, it's like it's this abstract kind of aesthetic appreciation of this, movement and color. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that it would have the same psychological effect if you didn't know that was a creature. Like, that's a creature that's alive right now. That jellyfish is not worried about coronavirus. And, it lives at a totally different pace than we do. Its consciousness is so different from ours that it's just a different kind of an organism. And I wonder if that's part of it too, just being able to see something else that's like not a human that's freaking out.
Yeah, I think that is important for a few reasons. It's interesting. On my podcast yesterday, I interviewed a woman who is a zookeeper. She takes care of the tigers at the Topeka Zoo. And I was talking to her a little bit about a similar subject, just about how humans are not the only creatures on the planet. And it's very easy in times of crisis to think of ourselves as the center of the planet. And we're not. There's other creatures having a totally different experience than us that's just as valid and just as important to them. And it is useful to flip out of the human-centered world when we can. I don't know what jellyfish think about. I don't think they really think about much, but they experience the same world that we're in a totally different way. And that's good for us to expose ourselves to.
The starting point for us and for any aquarium for inspiring people to care about and protect the ocean is putting them face to face with live sea creatures that they may never have experienced before. It opens their hearts, and then you can begin to talk about the challenges facing the ocean. And having the webcams lets us keep that mission going even while our doors are closed to the public. And I am hoping for a lot of people who've discovered the cams or have discovered that opportunity to calm themselves down and take a little bit of time, that they'll keep doing that, whether it's through the vehicle of webcams or in some other way in their life, long meditative walks on a beach or whatever it happens to be. I hope that continues.
That's it for this mini quarantine episode of The Briny. If you want to check out the Monterey Bay Aquarium's webcams, which I strongly suggest, you can go to their website, or actually easier is just to search for them on YouTube. Explore.org is another really good resource for wildlife cams of all shapes and sizes. Jessica Ellis's movie What Lies West might be paradoxically easier to see because of COVID-19 as movie festivals migrate online. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, The Briny is now a part of Hub and Spoke, a collective of smart, independently produced podcasts. Like Subtitle, a show all about language by Kavita Pillai and Patrick Cox. Subtitle just put out a great episode about the ways the coronavirus is upending our normal expectations about language, along with everything else.
Billions of us have been united by the very thing that's forcing us to stay apart. And so this feels like a moment when certain contradictions make sense in ways they wouldn't have even a few weeks ago. The world is big, and the world is small. And in that world, my favorite retired scientist is left saying prayers in a dead language that will outlive all of us.
You can listen to Subtitle at their website, subtitlepod.com. And you can check out all of the Hub and Spoke podcasts at hubspokeaudio.org. A big thank you to everyone at Hub and Spoke from my closet studio in Portland, Maine. Thanks for listening, and be well.